Daniel, you travel around the world playing the biggest poker tournaments in the world. You have a Triton title, WSOP bracelet, and have accumulated more than 60 million in live cashes. Now, there are various ways to make a living from poker, and you have chosen a lifestyle that has you constantly traveling, living out of a suitcase, and competing against the toughest fields in the world. What has drawn you to this type of grind or to this lifestyle?
I mean, when I got into poker at the beginning, for me, it was all about competition. Like, the lifestyle obviously is nice, the traveling, but it can get really exhausting. So it's not just about like seeing all these new places. But when I started playing, I would watch like every minute of EPT streams, every main event, every 100K. And I was always excited about the idea of at some point in my career playing versus people that I consider the best in their format or the best in this industry. So for me, it was like kind of felt natural that if you would have told me at the beginning of my career, this would have been a logical statement that you don't make it up to like the top level buy-ins, I would have probably back then said, okay, don't try it, I quit. Like I'm not like somebody who's like, I'm going to do it halfway. I don't want to get it done completely, or if I don't manage to do it, at least I tried it. But for me, it was like a very natural transition to start on lower stakes. I played like even back then, if you remember the 1 cent, 990 runners didn't go some stars, but they get like $10. So I started really like on the lower buy-ins, but for me, it was always like a goal to play the highest buy-ins possible versus people that I consider the best in the industry, which have a career and a resume over like 20 years and longer. And for me, it was very natural to like go this path. It wasn't that easy because like obviously back then when I started playing this stuff, a lot of liquidity was needed and the markets were going towards players who had already built a resume. So like the steps towards reaching this higher buy-ins was harder to basically prove that you can perform on this level. So I like played a couple of years lower stakes. I started with like a local casino in my hometown, playing like the €30, 35% rake traps that everybody of us knows daily. Played some online, but then slowly moved up like to 5K mains, 10K high rollers here and there. And then I would say approximately 3 or 4 years ago, I started having like my first steps on the Triton and the higher buy-in. Didn't work out at the beginning too good. So I had to kind of be resistant and like not like throw the towel or the white flag or whatever you want to call it. And the last 1.5 years driven me more and more towards this kind of competition. It's a good mix out of both. I mean, I like the traveling. I really do. But what for me really important was like I had a bigger swing, like downswing and like the big field main event and stuff. And it gets a bit frustrating sometimes when you play like this huge field. So like basically you need like top 5 out of 1,000 runners plus to like actually have a decent score, and like you cash way fewer times and go run deep like fewer times. Like for me, it was all the part I can compete with a smaller field of like very tough opponents, but I also like get kind of the rewarding part of like actually making final tables, winning titles, and actually like beating people that I consider very good. So this is like kind of the reward that I get by like playing this. And obviously like the money part is very sweet too. Cashing more often than just running versus 1,500 people all the time.
So it seems like a win-win for you that, you know, you get to compete at a higher level, right? Competition is something that really drives you. And like I said, yeah, the good part is if you play smaller fields, statistically you will reach more final tables, right? And that's obviously the fun of tournament poker. So straight away from the beginning of your career, this is kind of where you set your aim at. Like, I want to compete at the highest level.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it about doing something competitive for you at like a high level? What does that give you?
I mean, the thing is like when I was younger, I used to play chess. I played soccer in a team for like 10 years, but I always it was motivating like to have something that has a trophy or like there's like a path to the victory, like at some point, like there's something like at the end of the road. And so I was always like driven by that, but I also knew I was not like the super athletic sports star, so I would not like probably like make a career playing the Champions League or the World Cup. And chess has, to be fair, like very, very good people who started 10 years before I could even like probably speak. And they've probably had like way more volume already in. So I was like, it was not the thing that I would see myself pursuing a career in. Also, obviously, no matter how competitive you are, money is still a big factor. So the top 1% usually make a really good living in any industry. So yeah, then I got driven towards poker when I was younger. Once, like, definitely my first touch with poker is the very unrealistic scene out of Casino Royale Gen Swamp. The infamous bluff versus fold versus straight flush. And that's what my first impression of poker was. Like, oh, that looks interesting. Until I realized it's probably not like happening that often, if it ever happens. So yeah, then I got like into like little sent home games with friends. Like we bought like the classic unbranded poker chip set that everybody of us had with the 5 colored, no brand on it, no value on it chips. And I started playing like some heads up versus my brother at our kitchen table, get some friends together, put in €5 and pay who like basically is getting like a little pocket money, you want to call it. And yeah, that was like my first touches with poker. And then once I turned 18 or 19, I finished high school. I first wanted to study medicine and get a surgeon, but the criteria is pretty like strict in Austria, very limited places. So I went for my backup plan and went to law school. And there I got a friend who was working in a casino and I wanted to have a side job. So I started with a poker dealer actually and dealt tournaments for $10 an hour in my own top. That's how I got like real first touch with casinos and chips with tournaments. And so I started playing like the small stuff and realized the people who are sitting there and I'm doing the cards to, they're actually not that good. So I would take my tips after the shift and like short stack 1-2 with like $50. Like little casual 25 would be short staking cash game from my pre-date. I would play poker tournament in my home casino, not realizing the 30% rake is probably unbeatable.
When did you then kind of turn this into an actual profession? And I'm always curious as well, did you have like certain role models around you or people around you that you could do together with? Because you kind of said straight away, like, okay, I want to, reach this high goal. And I'm curious, like, where does that belief and confidence in yourself that you can actually get there come from? Is it just instilled within you, or did you have like people around you or role models around you that you could kind of take along with or use as an example?
My hometown is a very small city in Austria. Fun fact though, there's like actually like some really good high-stakes DLO players from back then. And then also like Matthias Eibinger, who lived like 25 minutes away from me. So how it would work, I would work in the casino and these guys would actually come like after midnight because there was no restaurant open in the small city except the casino kitchen. They would come and like play like some 1-2 just for fun while the food get ready. And so I got in touch with them a bit. Matthias was playing back then the 1K hypers on stars, like the Supernova lead, 6 max didn't go. And my other friends with them, getting friends with them, would play like PLO, Zoom. So I got like into touch with all the people my age actually already making a living from poker. So I was like, this is interesting. Like they're my age, they got in a bit earlier and they actually had a proof that this is not just like a daydream. This is not just like, oh, this could be, but it will never happen because I clearly see there's people making a career and a living off it. So yeah, step by step, I started working less hours basically and taking whatever would make a salary and like try to make a living with poker, but still keeping my university path on the side, not like quitting the job yet. And then like end of 2017, but I guess like my friends still being successful in poker. Okay, I want to give it a shot. So I take the courage, walk up to my parents and tell them I'm not going back to law school.
Did you have any like big scores to kind of back that up, or was it just like fuck it, I've kind of accumulated some money?
I didn't actually. Like I was kind of the main point for me was I was feeling like I'm doing the uni half-hearted because like I don't really felt like ever working as a lawyer. I was doing the job, but like on some days paying basically my colleague to take my shit so I could play online or go play live tournaments. So I was like, this is not the purpose of a job, right? You pay a guy to take the shit. It was like, okay, I gave it a shot. So I went to my parents and it was like, give me 12 months from now. I want to give it a try. My dad obviously is not happy about it. My mom neither. So I started like, let's say maybe talking February, March 2017. No idea what bankroll management is. I'm playing like occasionally like a 1K live, having like top 20K roll, everything. Doing basically whatever red flag and mistake you can make and just like jumping both flagged into it. And so we're like approximately now September 2017, I'm like, don't like 5-6K bankroll. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work this way. If I don't make something happen here at this point, I will go back to uni. Like, my dad is not going to accept me just like dusting up money and like playing it a career. So I decided I'm going to like take proper bankroll management into consideration if I want to be a professional and go play online mostly. But there was one live trip coming up still. So it was like, okay, like one last shot live, and then I'm just like going back to online and like try to like make it happen. Luckily for me, it's like a 150 tournament in Bratislava, like a couple 100K guaranteed. I just like win the tournament. I was like literally getting addicted with tournaments, but like having 1.5 bigs after the bubble and won up like tournament win for like 25 grand or whatever it was back then. I was like, oh, that was easy. That's not that hard. But yeah, fast forward, I stick to my old bankroll management, but I get kind of rewarded for being not really consistent with the plans by winning like a week later. I win like a 15K package for PCA of like $100 on stars. And then 2 months later, I got like 4th in the Concord Million, which is basically equivalent to a Sunday Million multi-flight, but live in Austria, like a big tournament we have. We pay 550 euros, like 2,000 entries across Austria, 10% back. And it's like a very special format because you back like 10 starting stacks on average. And you come back and the blinds get reset to 200 big blinds on day 2. Now you're technically playing like a 5K with 200 something K on top, significantly softer and infinite deeper. So I end up like making 4th place for another 60K. And now I'm talking December, right before PCA. I go back to my parents. I'm like, okay, here's proof. It's like I made like around 100 grand. Can't be in the package. Stupid as I am back then. And say like, I'm not going back to uni.
And your parents did not make the comment of variance result oriented.
My dad made a comment of like, great, give me the money. I'm buying you an apartment and you're going back to uni. That was his statement after I showed him that I made it. Obviously, my parents had no pure variance in this term, but my dad's head, it was like, okay, the kid got lucky. Let's make him like save the money before he's like getting broke and like dusting it off as a degenerate gambler. That was like his first
Did you get lucky?
I almost, like, I basically like broke the bankroll within like less than 7 months, I would say. Until I like got lucky again, like in, was it July, 6 months later. It's like, I dust off basically like close to that. I fly my brother in to the PCA with me to like put him in some events because like me and my brother, we were really close and we both like wanted to live the poker dreams. Like my first idea was, okay, I'm flying my brother in. I played my first 10K basically 5 months after I wanted to play $20 ABI online and didn't fold shit for it. Yeah, I dust off like a decent fraction of that roll like on PCA, go on like some other live stops, EPT. I think like I went to Monte Carlo. I think like I went to a bunch of live stops. So fast forward, like we're talking June-ish, 2018, and I'm like down to like let's say 20K, 18K bankroll. So I sun run again, like the next 500 multiply for another 60K score.
They came when you needed them the most.
They kept coming. Like I have to be honest, like they kept coming. Like if I would have not been lucky, and this is like one thing I have to be really honest, it was like if I wouldn't have kept getting like sun running and thinking this is like going to the ATM whenever I'm low on cash, I can just go and withdraw from a tournament. If I would have not got lucky, I don't know if I would be where I am now. And I don't say to people, try this, like follow this path. Like, please don't try it because like it's like a recipe for like not making it. But back then I was like, okay, whatever, I'll give it a try. So yeah, now I'm like back to like decent bankroll for like somebody who is not playing high stakes. And I got into like some offered like staking agreements, stuff like that. So now I have my bankroll basically kind of on the side. So was with a smart person too, maybe invest. So I started like buying like high variance pieces from other people and like taking my own shots again, like when the stake was not like taking all of it. Yeah. It took me 3 years to learn. Like we're not done with this circle yet. It's like preparing you for that part. Yeah. So like next year, we're talking about 2018, same kind of like area of the time. My brother actually runner-ups the same for 500 Massfield. And I had like half of his action. So he scored for 150 while I was already going low on liquidity again. Like 2018, like basically having like one big trip on July, having like that big score of my brother in end of the year. So now we're talking start of 2019, PSPT is happening the first time. $25,000 buy and pre-thought. millions on top. Obviously, I'm not selling a lot. And going for the stupid second attempt to crush the PCA and get crushed.
You went in there to wanted to get revenge. That was kind of the spirit.
Yeah, instead of got slapped in the face again and lost this time like almost a 6-digit bankroll on the PCA.
Why do you think you kept on going with the same strategy? Was it just because simply every time, well, like result rise in the past, every time at some point it would turn around, so you had no reason to change up the strategy, or you just like the feeling of like the thrill, the excitement?
I mean, it's a good mix of both. I would say, like, I obviously was excited back then. Like, let's phrase it this way. I'm now 31 years old. If you see the pieces I have nowadays compared to what I had with, like, way less bankroll and way younger, you would think, like, okay, this is, like, completely making no sense. But I learned from that. Like, it just took me a bit longer. Like, back then, I liked the feeling of, like, okay, I won like, big score and I'm, like, settled with, like, 25 unsettled. Or life, technically. Seeing like people back then, like the stories from Joe Cada, from like Danny Spindler, all these guys, these young kids with like 21, 22, 23, and like just run the first big event they played and just like had all of a sudden like 7 digits per annum. But this idea was obviously like entertaining me. But also like the second thing is like 2018 when I went to PCA, now I had already like some people like kind of behind my back in terms of like staking, piece selling arrangements. So now I was like, okay, let's say scenario I was broke. I have people who actually back then I had like a coach back then, had like some taking arrangements back then. So I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I just have like a financial backup who already has validated like how I play, and I'm not going like broke in terms of like I cannot play anymore. Worst case, I go liquidity broke. That was like the idea. Obviously like still stupid because you could just like make a way smarter approach and make consistent income and learn from your mistakes in the past. But I wasn't that smart when I was young. I can't lie about it.
You were kind of chasing that shortcut, right?
Yeah, I was chasing
you wanted one of those big scores.
I wanted one of the big scores, and I think like one of the reasons also why this was a thing I was chasing really quick comes back to the idea that I want to play like 100K and stuff, and they were happening back then already. I thought people 1-2 years older than me like playing like super high roll about 300K. Playing like, I don't know what was like back then, WPT Alpha 8, like 150K or whatever it was. But I saw like people kind of my age, maybe 1 or 2 years older, or like back then the German crew around Fedor, Stepan, Reiner, Korai, they all played like these stakes while I was like still like on the start, and they were just like 1-2 years older. So I was like, okay, if I have this one big score, I can like maybe start taking a piece of 100K myself instead of like a piece of a 10K. So I was like kind of like trying to chase that dream, not realizing how chasing the dream would be approached in a smart way. Also, like back then, I didn't have like a close circle, except like afterwards when I got into the people that had like more experience. But like I don't have that close circle that was playing like this stakes. So I was like thinking like, oh, this is how it had to be, right? I have to have 2 big scores in the first one, and like I have to like kind of compound it into the high stake game, not knowing that there's way more mechanics behind this playing super high rollers. I didn't know back then. I think what Markup was even like. For a while.
Yeah, I was gonna say because it sounds like you kind of wanted to play these events, but maybe at the time you were like, well, I don't know that I can find backers around where style action. I could still play this, right? Like when and what do you now consider to be the smart way? When did it kind of click, and how does that look nowadays? How has that evolved?
I mean, I would say nowadays I'm still like compared to my friends, I'm still the degenerate in the group in terms of like how I approach things. But I'm way smarter than my 24, 25-year-old me was. I realized that like markups is a thing. Like I know that starting pieces to like reasonably approach compared to a bankroll is a thing. And I realized that like just because you have like XYZ piece of yourself in a tournament doesn't mean like it's less worth and you like compete in there, which I thought back then was like, oh, I have to have this amount of myself necessarily to be like, oh, this is like actually meaningful. Now I realize it's just the competition that counts. Obviously, you want to have like certain amount of your big scores, but you also like you want to be there and be able to compete on a consistent level. Because the recipe of like having way too big pieces of yourself is literally, okay, you have like way big pieces. Either it goes really well at the beginning, that's great for you, or it goes not too well and you miss the liquidity and the cash flow to stay consistent in the mix to be able to like play the variance through and actually have the results based on your skill. So I didn't know back then that short-term variance is such a big thing because I was just like sun running and binking tournaments whenever I really needed it. So I was not realizing that it will have stretches, and I had that stretch afterwards. So like not earn for a year because like not earn for a year in terms of like being profitable for a full year and thinking like, oh, this is so bad. Like, why didn't I was smarter before? Like I learned it with time because like at some point like variance was not bailing me out and be like, okay, here's not a tournament thing, you need it right now. So now I had to like actually like realize downswings are real, and downswings are the things I would say that make people quit because it's just like something you cannot take into consideration how long it takes. It might take a month, it might take a year. But if you haven't like set yourself up to be financially somewhat stable or have like arrangement where you can like keep playing your stakes to go through the downswing, then like it's the recipe for like quitting and finding another path. And I didn't want it to quit. So I had to learn it like the hard way.
So going broke, you learned some things about yourself. I'm guessing you like were on the edges of going broke quite a few times, and obviously had this reckless relationship with your bankroll. What did you learn about yourself during the hard times? I think often we can face these kind of adversity, face the challenges, and we learn more about our character than we do during other times. So what did you learn about yourself during these volatile periods?
If I look now back, I learned a lot. Like back then, I think I didn't realize like the things I was about to learn. The biggest thing I learned was like everything like that people explain to you out of an industry usually comes from the point of them going through it and them learning it the hard way. So I had friends who actually like tried to like stop me back then and be like, okay, like this is the wrong approach. You're going to, and I would say, yeah, just talking. Like it's just like they never went through like this kind of like swing. Yeah, they didn't because they had proper bankroll management. They didn't went to the problems they tried to prevent me of like going through because they approached it different. They were like, okay, we did it this way. We did it the right way. We had never like this big trouble coming towards us because we didn't like put us out in the situation to get hit by like a swing that like pressures not just your poker life, also like might pressure your private life. So the one thing I learned is like, if you have a circle of close friends, you know that they want your best. Like, listen to them. They are not trying to like sabotage your career, or like they're not unhappy for you to win millions. But they also know if you won't win the millions like right away, you're going to have a rough stretch. So like trust your friends, trust really people who have the experience, and they want usually your best. Even you might not realize it at the moment when you're young and you're like trying to chase and shortcut some plans.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you're young, sometimes you have to gain wisdom through experience, and you can have wise people around you who are giving you the right advice, and you're like, yeah, shut up. I know my way. My way is the best way. And you almost like push them aside. So yeah, I think it is really good. And it's a real good skill if you can identify the people around you who do have experience, and you're kind of humble enough or open enough to listen to those people. You can definitely save yourself a lot of painful experiences. So yeah, for you, like I'm getting the image of someone who wants to compete with the best. They want to play the highest stakes quickly. You're trying to build your bankroll as quick as possible. You're kind of losing your bankroll, but then getting some of it back, and you've got this kind of up and down relationship. When for you did things start to stabilize? I'm guessing at some point there was maybe a time where you got a point where like, right now I can start approaching my bankroll more sensibly, and I can get a bit more solid ground. For you, when did you feel like you arrived at a point where it wasn't so volatile and you weren't swinging your bankroll so much?
I mean, I would say it's not even that long ago. We're talking maybe like 2 years, 2.5 years, like where I started like getting like more stable. Like, so my career like full-time started 2018. They're going through like the first 3 years, so they're like 2021, right around the COVID time, I think. Like 2020 was COVID. So I got like right before COVID, I was in a like banking agreement, and I had like a big score in Uruguay again with like my first like 10K final table. I scored for like almost 400 something K, like a party poker million back then. So I had like kind of like a bankroll again. Then COVID comes, and like now we're like shut down to online mostly, and I'm like having some deals and also like taking pieces of myself and like going still aggressive because I'm like, okay, I'm mid-20s, and there's like one thing that like one guy I really respect in the industry a lot, Leonard said, like he was like always, okay, like shot taking, obviously Pat is not, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but he's saying like go complete degenerate, but like the one thing he says like, aggressive shot taking when you're in your 20s is not the worst thing to do. Because if you have like kind of a certain skill set and people who know your skill set, you will get your chance again to get back on your feet as long as you can handle it from a mindset perspective. And I think like this is like the big problem that people underestimate. Like, okay, going broke when you're like in your 20s, it's not the worst thing that can happen to you. If you have a stable mindset and you like are willing to put in volume and like work on your game, you will like make it. Like that is fine. People like go through that stretch and then like break mentally. And this is like one big thing. If you cannot handle it mentally, that's going to like make you quit poker, I think, way more often than like just the financial pressure. I felt like always I didn't have like that attachment to money, I would say. Maybe because I was like always like spending like a lot and like having like certain like lifestyle attributes, which are also a bit modest, but I didn't got attached to money that hard. So therefore I was like also when I would lose money, I was not like really mentally bothered by it. So I was like, that was like probably like pushing me towards the shot taking also. So yeah, like COVID hit, play more online, go around that time like through my longest and like intense downswing, and didn't feel somehow bothered like when I hit like the rock bottom financially from like a swing perspective, because I had been there before. So like that's one thing. Like I took some stuff that was maybe not my smartest decision from back then, but it also like kind of prepared me for like when I went on an actual like big swing or in downwards. So I was like, okay, been here before, survived, we can do it again. But yeah, after that I like started like when COVID like stopped, I started to playing like the higher stuff like with Poker Go Studio, Poker Masters, like started to play here and then 25K. There I started like being smart about like the pieces and stuff. And then step by step it moved toward like playing the higher stakes like over I would say a consistent 3 years slowly. And I realized from the mistakes of before, I'm not 25 anymore, I'm not 23 anymore, I'm 31 now. I think some swings are funny, but I don't want to go like to swings that affect my life that hard anymore. Like I'm not 20 anymore. Like your time is limited. Like your brain is capable. The older you get, it is capable less. I know I'm not like 80 yet, but like you can perform longer hours. You can fly longer. You can like play more days without like feeling exhausted. And I feel like back in my 20s, like I would like play sometimes. I had years where I would play 200 plus tournaments live, plus online, plus I would average like 300 bullets in a year just in live tournaments and still play online and still study and not feel like tired. And now when I travel like 4 months in a row with like little break, I'm like, okay, after month 4, I need like proper 1 or 2 weeks. Right now I played like 2.5 months straight with Triton, Montenegro, and then 42 days in Vegas without taking a day off, averaging probably like 12 hours a day. I had like 42 playing days, 45 unique events, and like 80 bullets, which like looked up like a couple of days before, funnily. So after like 2 months, I'm like, okay, now I'm like on 2 weeks stretch where I don't want to touch cards. I want to like reset. I will read through some stuff. I will study a bit, but most of my time goes like actually like listening to what my head and my body tell me. And I don't feel like the FOMO of having to rush in every event that's happening at that moment. That's definitely one thing that I had to learn.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way you described risk for yourself and kind of be motivated by Pad's philosophy of taking risk when you're young. I do agree, like if you're able to deal with the mental side, the emotional sides of the kind of rock bottom moments and rebalance yourself, get a backer or at least get more finances behind you, it does often make a lot of sense to be very aggressive when you're young. When you've got that energy, you can bounce back. On the flip side though, it is difficult to keep getting knocked down. So for you, for example, let's say it's 2018 and you kind of almost go bust the first time, that you can kind of deal with that. But then 3 years later, 4 years later, before you know, the mind's starting to go, oh, come on, here we are again. We've been doing this 4 years, grinding so hard. We're still back in the slums going broke. So for you, how did you deal with like setback after setback? Because as you mentioned, like I feel for many players, downswings can be an end point for them. But for you, it felt like you were resilient enough to take multiple setbacks, multiple failures long term. So you mentioned not being affected by the finances. That's one side. But there's also the life's just keeping you down. For you, you're ambitious. You want to be playing these 100Ks. You're watching Fedor and his crew playing them. You're like, here I am, another downswing. When's it going to change for me? So how did you not get into a victim mindset? And how did you deal with a lot of adversity over that 3-4 years of your career?
I mean, not getting into a victim mindset is obviously like I feel like one of the hardest things, because it's easy to look at other people like, why them, why not me? But I think like for me personally, and this is what everybody has to find out for themselves, I enjoyed the grind. I really enjoyed like playing. Like time at the table don't feel like working for me in this time. Studying spot, like looking into like notes doesn't felt like, oh, this is work. This is something I have to do. It actually felt like something I want to do. So it felt mentally rewarding to be able to kind of chase my dream. So like the setback was to me like, okay, we have been here before. Like it's obviously like sometimes exhausting to be like, okay, I want to break through this time. But then when I had to like go back to the starting point or like, like to the setback point now, I'll be like, okay, I actually enjoy the ride. Like the kind of the path that I'm going through is something I like doing, like playing, like studying, like traveling. Like this is not like, oh, it's not like I went like Bato and be like, okay, now I have to like go to my 9 to 5 to build my finances back up to then be able to follow my dream. I was actually like in my head, I was like, I still was like living my dream. It was just like not the financial part of the dream yet, but enjoying to play, enjoying to make decisions at the table, like all this stuff, like actually felt never like working for me. And this is like why it was not that mentally exhausting for me as well. I really enjoyed it. Like even if it was like 15 tabling online, or it was like playing 10 days in a row without breaks, or 20 days in a row without breaks. I actually enjoyed it. And I had a path like in between that I was like less enjoying it because I was like feeling a bit exhausted from the volume that I was playing. And this is what I learned now. It's like nowadays when I don't feel like playing, I just don't. Like this is one thing that people say sometimes too hard. It's like, oh, I busted here. I wanted like I don't want to really play. I don't feel like playing. But I'm still going to rage. No, I don't. I don't feel like playing. I'm not going to rage, because you will always perform more poor when you're like making something you don't enjoy. And this is why, like for me back then, it was, oh, I have to play. No, I don't. Like if I don't want to play, I'm not going to play. Like this year, like I played JG, I played the full Triton series. It was like, and I really felt like the last 12 months, obviously result was going really well. It's like even like more enjoyable to play. So I went to JG, had that score, I won like the first Triton trophy, and then I was like really like feeling energized by that. So I went like 3 days off. I went to Prague for WSOP Hero. I played 1A of the main. I bought, I don't know, 11 p.m. And I'm like, okay, it's nothing else to play, but I really, I want to play. I feel like I want to play. So I hopped in the 500 PLO bracelet event, like a fucking runner-up did, like. But I was like, I really wanted to play. I was enjoying every minute, even though it was the 500 and not the high roller. I was enjoying the time at the table. And I felt like when you enjoy the things you do and you enjoy the path and like the little like milestones you reach till you're like on that final goal, or at least the thing that you think is the final goal, if you enjoy the steps towards it, it don't feel like exhausting or drowning your energy. Once like the little milestone takes a bit longer, or you have to like go back and then go back forward. This is like all like a journey.
Yeah, I love that. Like enjoying the process, enjoying the work rather than just trying to arrive at the destination, which is really interesting for you to have that perspective. Because as you mentioned at the start, you wanted to play the highest games. You mentioned enjoying the path to victory. So I'm sure like when you're having setbacks, it's very easy to be like, whoa, I'm not on track. I'm not making progress. But for you, just the enjoyment, the love of solving problems, working hard, in poker was always enjoyable in self. And with that, I kept you going. What I'm curious to know about you is, did your kind of belief in yourself or confidence take a knock at all during this patch? I can picture like obviously starting out really confident, wanting to play the highest games, but sometimes life keeps knocking you down for a period of time and you start to go, is this going to work for me? Have I still got what it takes? Did you always have that confidence in yourself? And if not, what happened during those kind of tough times for you?
It's a fun point that you're going to, because like that was more a problem for me. Like in the other way, I was way too fucking overconfident all the time. I was like, oh yeah, I'm great. Like I will be fine. It'll work out. I was way too overconfident compared to my skill. Just because like obviously sun running the first 2 years of your career, you feel like, oh, I must be that great. Like every time it works out for me. So I was like way too confident, unfortunately, which was part of the recipe why I would like keep doing stupid shit, because I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm going to like figure it out. And then like the moment you start studying in poker, and this is the beauty about the game, I think, like, is like the better you get, the more you realize how much you suck. literally. Like you learn one thing and you're like, shit, I don't know the other 5 things because I just like came towards like I studied like one spot and I land in one node. And I'm like, fuck, I have no clue how this node actually works. And I'm like sitting here since like 4 years and like playing poker. I'm thinking like I did great, and like all of a sudden I'll be like, actually I don't know shit. Like it's like this. That's like kind of motivation because like you realize where you lack. By every step you improve, you find a new topic where you're lacking in. So it is we have to play a game with incomplete information. So like every node is just as perfect as you make it. Like you can like lie to yourself and be like, oh, I know this node perfectly. But the moment the guy like loses 2 combos on the river because of his bluff, like your whole node is worthless. Like this is what different people, and this is like I think like one thing I lacked a lot towards like playing like the higher stake was like, oh, I was like, I'm going to study with like Wizard or like Pio and HRC, and I'm going to like memorize this node. I will be like fucking great. That was like my idea of poker. And then like I would like come to the river and press the call button with like plus 0.1 BB catcher, and then like every time be shown value and be like, how? This must be variant. Until like GTO Wizard, I think like 3 years ago, added their node lock function, which I was not using very often when I was using Pio because it was uncomfortable, like just like having to do everything by hand and rerun the spots and everything. So then now all of a sudden node logging was convenient. And I would go to the river and be like, okay, let me look at this river range. Okay, let me remove like 5 combos. Oh shit, I called -1 BB. So like realizing that your node is just as perfect as you make it. And the reality you put yourself for every spot is just as perfect as you kind of let it be, is like the one thing you learn. Like self-reflection is something you need to have as a person, but also about every hand. Like people can bullshit themselves and be like, oh yeah, it's variant. Oh, I bluff catched with a GTO combo. Yeah, your GTO combo was like -5 BB when the guy lost like half his bluffs by the river. Or your triple barrel bluff was that great until the guy like folded every catcher on the turn and you like bluffed into a nut range which has 0 folds on the river. So being able as a poker player to understand theory, but also understanding where to deviate makes that people that are consistent here for like about 20 years makes them that great. Like there's so many people I could like refer to right now, like, and I don't want to like miss out on any, but like obviously this was way too long. But like let's take, I don't know, one person I like really feel like him and his like people around like Kuhn, or like the crews around like Cash Game Guy, like that have gone into tournaments like Mokri and other guys. These guys have played so many hands versus actual humans while studying what the theory worked, how the theory worked. And when you watch them play, they're just like great in any aspect of it because they understand where to like make deviation. They're like all-rounders. They're not just like good in one niche. And I feel like when you get like to a level of poker where you want to like perform versus the best, you have to have like a good all-rounder strategy and being able to deviate from like what your computer tells you.
Let me tell you about Hand to Note, one of my favorite tools I use to improve as a poker player. What do all our guests have in common? They are deliberate in how they improve. While most of you guys are discussing hands with friends, watching videos, or looking up a spot here and there, it's clear that the top pros build structured systems and use the right tools to actually get better. One of these tools is Hand to Note. Hand to Note tracks every hand I play. I mark spots in game that I'm unsure about or found interesting, which helps me let go of what just happened and stay fully focused on the current hand I'm dealt, knowing that all hands I played are stored and ready to review when my session is over. Because just like in sports, the next game starts when this one ends. After I perform my session, I go in review mode. I go over my marked hands, the biggest spots I've played, and filter for specific spots I'm currently focused on. Session after session, I build a database of my game, and over time, my tendencies and biggest leaks start to show. This information allows me to direct all my studying to what is most important. With that clarity alone, you can cut your journey to the top in half. But it's not just your own game, because Hand to Note tracks those of your opponents too. Every action they take is stored and ready to be analyzed, ready to be exploited. And as the legendary Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Clarity is power. Hand to note gives you that clarity. So if you want to become more deliberate in how you improve as well and start exploiting your opponents at a higher level, check out Hand to Note via the link in the description down below to start your 14-day free trial and use code MECHANICS to get 10% off your first purchase.
Yeah, you mentioned being the overconfidence. And yeah, I'm curious to know for you, when did that get beaten out of you? Because I think when you're overconfident, if you look at like the extremes, the overconfident person will always put themselves in games which are too hard for them and think they can beat them early. The underconfident player won't play high enough and will limit themselves. But somebody, I feel like you need to arrive at the kind of sweet spot where your confidence matches your skill level, so you can play in games which are you're accurately beaten over time. So for you, when did because obviously with the overconfident, you're going to have a chance of going broke pretty often. When did you feel like, because you felt like you started studying, you realized you didn't know as much, studying opened your eyes to what you didn't know. But when did you feel like you're like, all right, I'm not overconfident now, but I'm actually aware of my skill level for the games I play. I actually feel like I've got a good perspective on where I stand in the poker world in terms of games I can beat.
I would say that got beaten into me by like my first steps on the higher buy-in, like when I realized I need like a bit more of a humble approach. It was like, oh, I'm easy. This is going to be not that hard. And then they put you constantly in notes where you're like, fuck, my head is smoking. Just try playing ICAX than 200 big deep on level 1. And like one of like my prime examples. Like, and when every node you land in, it's like somehow you find yourself in a tree that you have never like looked even close to before. And you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing here versus that guy now. Like they like playing the higher stakes too quickly for me was obviously like two things. It was like following the dream that I wanted to have, but it also humbled me in terms of like, these guys are actually good. I'm not getting away with like, oh, I'm okay in this node. This is going to work for me. Or like, did you getting punished on like at some point like in your career when you're like underestimating your opponent and like playing like big build main events, so you're playing like an over recreational. A lot of the spots will be like thrown to you. Like they will like be like play face up sizing, face up nodes. And you're like, okay, this one is comfy. Like he's like, okay, he always bets like B30 on the flop. Okay, like there's no, you don't fade B150, 1B200 on an 8 high flop versus recreational very often. So you're like not used to this node. And they are like, the node that they push you in, they're like comfortable to play again. And then you like all of a sudden playing the higher stakes and they like basically put you every time in the toughest spot. So you're like on every street, you're like guessing, is this fold? There's a call. Do I check raise here versus that huge sizing? Is this a too wide of a float versus a B25? So they force you kind of to get better. And yeah, if you go too early in that stakes, you might lose some money, like some EV. But you also like put yourself up to like actually try to catch up to these guys. Try to learn what they're doing and try to like find a good counter strategy. And at some point, like you will see that also these guys who are like been great for 20 years. In some notes, they're like, let's say comfortable. Like comfortable is just like lazy. I don't want to try to insult someone. But like some people are like, okay, like there's a spot and the board is, I don't know, it's a big bet board mostly. And the person is with a really good high stick back, that's small versus you. And like, okay, now they also are comfortable sometimes. Like it's not like just like, then people assume that like people on this higher rollers and Triton, whatever, they will always be excellent and have no flaws. We are all humans. We are not robots. Like some people have days where they're like, okay, let me just like take the comfortable like small sizing here, and it will be fine because the EV loss is minimal or like not existent if the person doesn't approach it right. So yeah, once I saw like that, that everybody on this stage is still human, and I started realizing that like if I work hard and like I be consistent, I can actually like stay here and don't need to like turn around and go back wherever I came from. The confidence kind of started like getting lower than the overconfident level, but the skill getting higher and they were like somehow getting closer to match each other.
I'm curious, you mentioned that, you know, we're playing against humans or people who could be lazy. What role do you think like current form plays in poker?
I think it played a big role. And this is like probably the one thing. I saw the question you had like in the pre-question stuff. It was like about like rock bottom. I never felt like hitting rock bottom, like in the mental state. But what I have saw, like I had like 1 year ago, I was with a friend and like he told me a sentence that like stuck to me. Like then I was like the heaviest in terms of body weight, like that I've been, I was like, I think almost 170 kilograms at that point, not living the healthiest lifestyle, having a bad eating nutrition routine, going too often out. So my health was like the one thing that I felt like was lacking. I felt like I always had a decent like routine in terms of playing, volume, studying, but I was like lacking in terms of like actual like body health, like not even mental health, but like I can see how this is still like falls in the category mental health because like you're more tired, you have more lack of focus. So that friend told me like he's playing all this stuff too, and he like big success. So he was like, look around in like the highest bind and like, do you see many chubby people like from the people who are like here for 20 years? No, like yeah, because the people that are like fit on the table are usually fit off the table. They're like trying to be mentally and physically as prepared as they are like theoretically. Shout out to my friends. Like I have like a bunch of very good friends back then, like pointed this one out very often to me. Even they come back with me to like make me actually turn my life around in terms of like health. That made a big impact. I think obviously like it's variance. This is not like you lose 20 kg, you win like $1 million recipe. But this friend like actually made me think about like this stuff more properly. I lost like 43 kilograms from last May till now. So I've been like now like 120-ish, 24, 125. And one day made me realize that my life is going downhill in terms of health. And I managed to like turn things around, like work out and like not eat shit all the time. I felt fitter on the tables and luckily had also like this insane fun run of like basically like I started this journey. It's like the thing like one post of me from my Instagram profile on like December after putting the bracelet, where you have like swipe through pictures when you have time you can like look at it. You see me like being at the beginning of the year really chubby to the last picture where I've like lost like at that point I think like 35 kilograms. And like rewatching the pictures of myself while going on this heater, I was like, yeah, okay, it's varying. There's still something into this. Like not being on final two tables sleepy and having a headache because I actually like either like fasted for the day or I had like not a burger and fries and I had a salad and the chicken breast or whatever. Like being able to perform when actually the money is to be made in the end game and getting like proper sleep because I didn't drink for like a month or like two, any alcohol, like this makes a difference. Like, and this is one thing that I think like it's not talked enough about is that like when you want to perform, it's not just how good you're in studying. It's not how good you're just at playing. It's also how good you can execute when it actually matters. And this is like something that your body plays a big role in.
Yeah, sounds like for you, you have some good friends around you that kind of highlighted lifestyle factors are going to allow you to play better as a poker player. I do feel like for poker players, it's so good to be incentivized by health equals more EV. I can play better poker, I can play longer, I can make more goals rather than just a good body or just getting fit for fitness sakes. So yeah, I do feel like it's I think the link's so direct in terms of your energy, your ability to focus, your ability to play long sessions. And as you mentioned, like for a tournament player in particular, when all the money's on the line, final table, final two tables, are you sharp? Are you energized? Have you slept well? Are you ready to play your best poker? If not, obviously variance will play into it, but overall, a long sample, you're not going to be able to execute the strategy you're capable of. You mentioned something earlier, which I've put a line under. You mentioned even the best players that sometimes get comfortable. And you mentioned comfortable in terms of their strategy. And I want to know, like, for you, like how you relate to the importance of willing to be uncomfortable. Like when you're playing poker, how important is it to go for the lines, to put yourself in spots which are out of your comfort zone? How do you relate to the difference between someone who's playing a comfortable strategy versus someone who's maybe a bit more brave and willing to get uncomfortable with how they play?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that point like before, like on the writing. Like I feel like discomfort keeps you moving. Discomfort puts you in a situation where you're like, if I'm not feeling comfortable right now, I have to make a change. So as long as if you make that change, if you work on that, like you get comfortable maybe in this spot, but then again, like you kind of settle, you're like, okay, like now I'm not stressed, now I don't need to change anything because the environment I'm moving in is just chilled. I don't have any pressure. And yeah, okay, you don't need pressure in all of your life, but pressure still makes you moving. There's like, I have so many like, I don't know, phrases that I learned. Like there's one person told me like, what do you think diamonds are made of? Without pressure. Well, like there are like most valuable things made in like high pressure spots. Like this is the situations that make and break people. You don't have to like kept stressed all of your life and be like coming under consistent cortisol spikes. That's not what I'm saying. Or like under adrenaline all the time. But also like when you get like chilled and you're like settled and you're like financially settled and you're like playing you can play at any time, you start maybe being comfy. So then you have to push yourself for the next kind of little bit of discomfort. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be right enough to like keep you going.
How do you actively seek discomfort for yourself? I can picture all of us, we gravitate towards comfort. We end up in comfortable situations throughout our lives. And I feel for myself, I've got to often identify that I'm comfortable here, which often means not growing, cruising, in a bit of maintenance phase. Now I've got to actively seek a challenge that gets me out of my comfort zone to grow. So for you, how do you, what are some things you do to make sure you're taking on challenges and seeking discomfort?
The one thing I feel like is always the playing this Triton. This is why I enjoy them so much. It's like, I feel whenever you go to like, let's say a Triton stop, your competition improves. Your competition is not sitting there either and waiting for the next stop to happen, like most of them. So whenever you play this stop, you always find some new spot, like the new fancy node, like some turn lead, like whatever it is. And you like having like this, oh, wait a second, I don't think I'm prepared for this part. Or I didn't prepare for this one enough. So like I usually tend to like screenshot like on the app, like the hand play that was like uncomfortable, and I go into that and I'm like, okay, what's the counter here? What do I do here to not be like a target when we land in this node? Well, and I have like people on the stops which feel constantly like this specific opponent, I don't want to name them, but they will put me in headache spot every time I play versus them. And they push me this is like why I like the stakes and like I like this tournament. They push me kind of towards being better the next one or being prepared better. And it's like a learning curve, right? Like next time I'm going that they might still find like a thing that makes me headache, but I will be prepared for the last thing they put me into. And for the last top spot, this is like on the tables. Preparation usually solves discomfort. And as long as you put yourself out the next spot, you will always find a new spot that you need to prepare for. I feel like getting comfortable is like when you like stop playing really that much anymore, or you're like pursuing some other stuff, then it's like, okay, now you can get comfortable because like you're not aiming for like that path anymore, that journey in like the commitment that you used to do. And then like for the comfort in terms of life, I mean, I got really comfortable and I've got that piece of shit at some point. Sorry, like not like very talking I'm talking about myself. I was like seeing pictures of myself, like basically like not fitting in my shirt, like having to buy new clothes, but not because I got thinner, because I was like gaining weight. Like right now, I'm like, okay, small discomfort. I'm fasting, doing WSOP. I'm fasting most of the day. It's a small discomfort of like being hungry, but it pushes me like, okay, I don't need to digest. I don't need to like think about what I'm eating. Like there's no logistics to handle. I just like, I wake up in the morning, I maybe have like a coffee or like maybe a small snack, and then I don't eat. And sometimes I will like, oh, I would like to eat. Like pushing me towards, okay, I'm going to like finish my day strong, and then I go eat. Or I'm done with the tournament during like Jeju when I started like following harder on the fitness stuff. I would wake up in the morning, I go to the gym, do a small session, and I'll be back around midnight. The gym is 24/7. I'm like, okay, I on purpose did a small session, not a full session, to have the discomfort. Okay, I go now, I'm back. I put my fat pants on, I go on the bike for like 20 minutes. It's not comfortable after a 10-hour tournament day, but it pushes me to do something that I don't like because the goal behind it is a more important one than the discomfort and the disliking of the situation.
I love that. You covered it from like both angles in terms of the big picture. For you, the discomfort is always battling the best, trying to play tough lineups, Triton being the kind of pinnacle of that. And yeah, you're going to be in uncomfortable scenarios playing against the best players where they put you in different spots. And then you mentioned the other stuff as well, which like the the day-to-day, the lifestyle stuff, the doing the exercise, doing the workout, choosing the diet that makes you feel good, which often has you making choices that make you feel uncomfortable in the short term, but you feel better about yourself in the long term. So yeah, I really love that because you kind of cover like how we can think about ourselves in terms of how we're seeking discomfort. And I always think like short-term discomfort often leads to long-term pleasures or long-term rewards, but we have to get past that kind of the dopamine hits and the short-term. Yeah, the reason we have comfort in the short term is because it feels good in the moment, but it often can take us away from our goals. So yeah, I really like that you were able to cover that. So we've got a lot about your kind of ups, your downs, your volatile period at the start. I want to dive into your story the last 12 months. I know for you, you've been on a crazy heater and it's been some of the high points in terms of results for you. How has that felt for you? How has it felt playing through a really good run of results? How has that changed your motivation or your confidence?
I mean, I've been playing since 2018 full time and always like, as we mentioned at the beginning, like kind of wanted this big score and it's like big result. And I played like higher stakes too, but I never had like the 7-digit score, which felt like logically for me the next high score because it's the game and like you want like unlock the next scores. Last year when I went to Vegas, I thought I want to like have like a big score, even though money was not like the driving factor. It was like I want to like unlock that. It was also like around the time I had like a pretty big downer, so like I really wanted it. And at some point in Vegas, I was like, okay, I'm like getting shows here and there, but somehow another like having this final stretch going my way. And I decided to come later. This was the first year I went actually later to Vegas than I was like supposed to, because every year I usually do 7 per week. But a friend, one of my very close friends got married, so I was glad to go to the wedding and prioritize my private life over poker and not FOMO into Vegas. So I went there and like the 10K win lane like went so smooth. Like day 1 went smooth, 1 bullet, back, day 2 easily, like nothing too crazy. I felt like really comfortable playing. I felt also maybe like a factor was that I wasn't there for the first 3 weeks. I felt like fresh, and you can see on the table when like someone is like already tired. They have been playing like 3 weeks straight. Like so I felt like fresher than like a bunch of the competition I had there, but they've been like grinding 3 weeks already. And like I felt like kind of dialed in that specific tournament, obviously. Was one of my first tournaments I played that summer. And everything was going like great. Like I had like, I don't know, 3x average over most of the time. And then on the final table, everything started, like before the final table, everything started going downhill. Like, I don't know, I lose a big split, I run case king into 8, it's all of a sudden on the final table bubble, and like from 3x average to shorted deck 10 out of 10. But I didn't felt any pressure because exactly like what I mentioned before, I sat there and I was like, okay, we have been there before. It's going to be okay. And if I bust now, like, some run going forward, all of a sudden I end up third place in the tournament, even by making a huge mistake, because like the infamous hand where the guy bust both of us, I actually like called to lose off and lost real money pay jump of like 400 grand. Like fucking crazy hand where the guy just it's like infinite chip leading. It's like 100 bigs to 14 and 8. He open jams the button. Small blind, the 14 calls off, and I have 10s in the big blind of like 7 BB. No time banks, blunder in the call, which had to be a fold. Small blind is kings, and the button is 7-8 off, and somehow on a king high bull flop, still run around a quad to bust both of us with 7-8. So I lost actual money there. So, and this is the moment I busted. I couldn't even enjoy that moment because my friend came to congratulate me. I was like, guy, give me 2 minutes. I think I like fucking blundered here huge because I was in game already, so I'm not sure. So I like end up not even collecting the cash, going straight to my room, running the spots, being pissed that I blundered, come back, collect my payout, and jump in the next tournament. So it was like the start of the heater, basically. This was my first 7-digit score for like 1.2. And the next morning, I was not feeling like really satisfied with the result because it was a great score. It was a big field. Like it was all I wanted. And everything that was in my head was basically just like, how do I blunder here? How do I make a mistake that big on like such a big stage? So it took me like 1 or 2 days to like settle it, like be grateful for the result and just learn from it. It's a process, it's a journey. It felt like a setback, like a bigger setback than every time, like non-comparable to the times I dusted off my roll, felt less painful than like making like such a big blunder in like on a big stage, like on a big tournament. So after that, it took me some time. I sat down and was like, okay, we live and we learn. I had to like remind myself that mistakes happen. And then after that, I went like on a heater that I can't really describe. Like I've been so much over EV and I'm like very stop reflecting on it. I've been so much OAV over the last 12 months. So like, so the months later, I go there, play like a 50K single day, like basically a turbo, like on the Onyx series, and just like win it again off like being the short stack on the FT. Month later, I think it come back to Cyprus, or like 1.5 months later, come back to Cyprus, got 5K main with 1,400 runners. Then what? They're basically that kind of format that over the last year I would not perform in, like big field, get second in that, and then go to JR, go to Bahamas, then my first bracelet, and then go to Jeju, win another big one, and now Vegas. Like, I mean, Vegas has been surreal. I got 5K 6 max again, 1,400 runners, get 4. Couple days later, or like a week later, like got second in the 50, and like it's a surreal experience. Like, it's basically like from all the other side of the spectrum where you're like getting so close and like busting off the roll compared to like a stretch of your career where it seems like no matter if you do things right or wrong in a theoretical perspective, somehow when the cards land on their backs, you get chips put towards your direction. Like, this is the big spectrum you move in when you're like in poker. Sometimes you feel like you do things right and just like not getting result. And sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm dialed in, I'm making good decisions overall, but even the times that I make the mistakes, I kind of not get punished for it in terms of variance. So it's been a definitely surreal experience, and one that I'm very grateful for, but I also realized that it's not reflecting, mirroring exactly what I was supposed to like win in this time span. And I think this is like very important to as a poker player, that winners count is real. And if you like feel entitled to the results that you get, or you feel like, oh, this is unfair, like this should be on every casino's entrance. If you're looking for fairness in terms of result turnaround.
Yeah, interesting. So for you, like obviously we mentioned at the start of the conversation, a lot of your journey was to get where you are now, to play the best, to get those results, the path to victory, so to speak. You mentioned even the trophy being available in poker, which was appealing to you. Now you've kind of achieved a lot of this. You've got the point where you're like, wow, this is kind of the pinnacle of the game. How does it feel to be where you are now in terms of, does it feel like what you thought it was going to feel like? And how is your motivation for going forward now?
That's a great question, because I actually told this to a friend a week or 2 ago. It's like we were talking about the results of the last 12 months, and I was like, I won these trophies, I won this bracelet, I went deep in so many events, and it didn't felt like the way I thought it would feel. Like I thought like when you actually like have that part of success and like we get like the big scores to be like, oh yeah, this is where I want it to be. But the pleasure of like actually winning the trophy, or like lifting the trophy, or like having the big score feels good for like maybe a day. This is like the moment. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but like the people would think that like winning the tournament is actually like, this is the end goal. This is like the one where like, okay, I finally did it. And for me, it was once this all happened, I realized that actually the thing that made me enjoy all of this was the path to going there, the path to reaching there. Journey, what was the satisfaction about it? The trophy was just the end point. And like, if it's like the end point of the journey at all, like you're like, okay, I want to win this tournament and I'm done, that's okay. But like, if the journey isn't over, then you will get way more pleasure out of reaching the goal than actually like once you're there. Because like, it feels like an end. Like when the tournament finishes, it's the end of the tournament, right? Like it feels like it's over. And something being over never feels that satisfying than like actually like the way of reaching it.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. You said thinking like you're not where you want to be. And I've had many poker players who I speak with who their frustration is they want to be at a certain achievement, a certain stakes, a certain end goal. And I always relate to them. I say, well, how do you think it'll feel when you get there? And very often they expect it to feel very differently, very fulfilled, very happy, very, wow, I'll be a difference, fulfilled, happy version of myself. And in reality, often we achieve the thing and we're like, feels the same. I mean, I had a good day, I felt nice, I've got different finances, but I still feel the same. I still feel the same myself. Yeah. And then that's when the insight comes, it wasn't the thing I was chasing, it was the journey to get there. And as long as I'm still on that journey, trying to grow, trying to improve, that's the thing. The thing at the carrot at the end, great, there's a little bit of a bonus at the end of it, which can validate me, can make me feel like I'm on the right track. But in terms of the pursuit itself, that's the juice. And yeah, I think for you, it feels like you're in that point now where you're realizing that's true for you. So in terms of like the journey that you're on now, what's the kind of next steps for you? Like, how do you still, obviously right now you're still in the heat and you're still invincible winning everything that you put yourself into. How are you feeling in terms of the journey that you're currently on and what you want to achieve and how you're setting goals for yourself now?
I mean, honestly, like I see myself playing like another 10 years. I enjoy it. I really do. I couldn't see myself doing much different things right now as a career. I've obviously like some stuff that gets more interesting for you in terms of like investing, etc. once you get older. But my main purpose right now is to like, I want to play poker. I really enjoy the time on the table. And right now, like I've been off in end of World Series. So it's like been like now around 2 weeks that I haven't played. And I already like kind of feel like I need to get back in the action. And yeah, I'm missing it already. So I'm going to have a couple more days off, like there's another wedding coming up and my mom's birthday. But after that, I will be back in the mix. I'm happy looking forward to play Onyx Series and Viper, probably Barcelona, and then straight off to Jeju. I need the action back. Like I need to be back at the table.
The journey continues.
The journey continues, and the journey isn't over like for the next 5 to 10 years at least.
Has that experience, like you mentioned, that it didn't really feel like you thought it would feel, and you realized that the journey was actually the thing that made you happy. Has that realization changed anything in how you now approach your day-to-day life grind?
Probably makes that's probably one thing that I said, like I don't FOMO anymore into one event to the next one to the next one. Was back then when you didn't have like this kind of achievement and you're like, I want to have this, I want to like reach the goal because you felt like this is going to be the rewarding point. So you FOMOed into one tournament after another to like actually have that feeling. But now that I'm there, like now that I had this score, so I'm like, okay, this is not the rewarding part. So I don't need to make my journey like unnecessarily stressful. Like discomfort, we talked about it, yes, but I don't need to make my journey unnecessarily stressful and pressured to have the next score. Because now I know that score is not what is making me happy. Like the day-to-day, like it's not making me happy. And also like listening to my body and mind in terms of like when I feel tired, I'd be like, okay, I take a day off, I take a week off, I take a recharge, and then I come back fitter, better, stronger, and then I will like actually put in a decent performance over like, oh, I'm just like sitting there half tired and like being like, okay, like let's play.
Would there, for example, now be a certain stop that you would skip because you kind of realize this and I'm just chasing fucking shiny objects?
Yeah, like if a stop is like too far away, I mean, like I don't have like right now a stop in mind, but like back then, like I would be okay. Like the craziest one I did, for example, in my career was like I qualified for APT Taipei. They had back then like the online day 1, day 2 on GG. So I played there. I qualified for Taipei main event day 3. I went to Taipei. And I bussed like around noon. So I'm like on my phone with my friend, and they're like in Choctaw, Oklahoma, like an hour drive from Dallas, to play a WPT where there's a 3.5K main event and the second highest fine is 600. So me busting because I didn't want the main in Taipei, I rushed to the airport, like go to the hotel, pack my stuff, grab a flight to Dallas on the other side of the world, jump in from Taipei to Hong Kong, LA, Dallas, jump in an Uber to make 1B of the 3.5K. I would not do this anymore. I played 1,3,500 and it took us like half a day to then Uber from Oklahoma to like Austin, Texas to the lodge. And then like I played in the lodge a bit. Then I like fly to LA, play for 1 WPT and then go 2 months straight into it. I would not recommend it and I would not do it at this time of my life anymore to fly half the world for like a 3,500. Like then I thought it's a great idea. Because I wanted the rush, I wanted that score.
You mentioned, obviously we talked about kind of your turbulent start to your career. You mentioned that one of the reasons that you kept on going broke as well, right? We mentioned the overconfidence. You also mentioned winner's tilt. I'm curious how you think winner's tilt has been, how it has affected you in the past that made you go broke. And with that experience in mind, what did you try to change or manage better in, let's say, your current good run?
I think, honestly, no matter how good you are, like a little bit of winner's tilt is always going to be there because like winner's tilt is not purely negative. It's all like something of like confidence in decision making. But like when you're already like too young, too unpredictable and way too overconfident, it makes you like not realize how good your competition is. You always think like you can outplay them in the next empty line or you push yourself into like the next weird part of the tree because you're like thinking, oh, I'm better than them. I will just like outplay them in like a node where both of us are not decent, and you're not realizing that your competition is actually good. So this is like one thing that like I would say happens more often when you play like the big field stuff because like you don't know your opponent. You don't know their achievements. You don't know their knowledge. So you're way more likely to go on winner's till and be like, oh, I can just outplay that guy. While when you're like playing like this higher stake stuff where every person that is there has 10 years, 20 years stock experience and resume built, you're not sitting across like someone who's like been on the highest and toughest stakes like for 10 years plus to be like, oh, I cannot play. It like the stakes and the competition humbles you, I would say, enough to be like more self-aware and not just like overconfident and cocky to like try to outplay someone just because you're on an upswing. Obviously doesn't fit for everyone, but like I would say for me, this is like one big topic though, and I'm not going to like to then assume I can outplay like people who have like really good knowledge and have done the same amount of work and more than me probably in volume of a double as long as career.
Yeah, you kind of give
Credit.
respect where respect is due, right?
Yes, exactly.
How much attention do you pay to like your opponents and kind of the run that they are, and how much do you try to adjust your game based on that? I heard you talk about when you arrived in Vegas, you saw, okay, these guys are already 3 weeks in. It looks like it's not really going that well, right? You could see they're a little bit already tired of the grind. Like this kind of human aspect of poker, how does that play in your decision-making process?
I mean, especially in the high stake stuff, you see like results more consistent because these teams are smaller and we talked about it. So you will see people having been going on like more stretches of like scores and stuff. So you don't put in like, I would say, too much weight in that part. But you can see when someone is doing really well and is like confident, or like you can also see like when someone is like, things are not going too well. Nowadays with Triton, you have the app. So you also see hand that your opponent, you come to a new table and you see like, okay, someone with a big stack, just like scroll through. Okay, did he want a big flip? Did he like sucked out on someone? Did he like play the hand like very aggressively and got there? Or it's just like, what happened? Like you can kind of all of that really assume what kind of mood or vibe is, but also like you can obviously see how your self-reflection is also very important in that part, because you know how your opponent like think how you're playing. So you like have to be aware of like, okay, the guy thinks I'm patient. Probably not the best idea to block him. I'll still probably go for it because I think it's a good play. It's a good play, and people are less result orientated on this stakes, I would say, than on general like big field stuff. So you like, if you think your play is good, you will go for it, and if it doesn't work out, you will be objectively looking at your play in general. But you still will always be aware of like how people. You will see how people approach the game in a certain day. Some people have like more aggressive days and some more chill days. But it doesn't like their game plan is completely different. But you will see like some people going like more aggressively for some spot, and also like when they have certain results and results keep coming, people even on this stakes sometimes might tend to be more aggressive because they're like, okay, it's working right now.
I feel like, okay, it's a close spot. Is he going to find these bluffs or follow this through? Well, he's been on a pretty big upswing, so likely that he's more likely to find it than if things have not been going his way.
Yeah, human perspective, like they talk about is you're not robots. Like even though like most people think that like don't code robots with no emotion sitting there, people on any stakes are at the end human, and emotions and preparation can be on and off the table. So this factors definitely play a role. So.
Would you say that this is one of the like bigger misconceptions when we think about like the high roller scene and like the best of the best, or does anyone else stand out?
I think it's a general misconception because like people just think sometimes it doesn't reflect purely on high rollers. I know great players, like really outstanding players who just don't play like 100Ks because they're like, okay, I think my edge or like my EV is similar in like other tournaments if I like play more volume, or I get like XYZ markup here, but my ROI in this tournament is so much higher that I don't want to like battle. So like people are emotionally cold. Like that ones that are emotionally cold are not necessarily just emotionally cold because they play high stakes, and that ones that are emotional are not same. Like if you play like a guy who is like really good and have very good emotional control, it doesn't matter if he's in the 5K or in 100K. Like that person there's like a certain character type. It's not like a buy-in requirement. It's a skill, in my opinion.
No, that makes sense. I kind of just mention it as like Triton. Okay, that's kind of where the best comes from. But I get what you mean.
Yeah.
We opened this conversation actually saying, that there's many ways that someone can be a professional poker player, right? You can play online, live, tournaments, cash, whatever. Why for you tournaments?
It's probably a mix of like allow the uniqueness. Like every spot kind of has like a new unique aspect, like stack size, tournament stage, character type, payout structure. Like it keeps me entertained and it keeps me again like a little bit uncomfortable, and discomfort pushes me to like improve this thing and this thing. So it's like always something new coming up. Not so tribes they like the cat games don't have like discomfort, because like you will play deep versus like some of the best players in the world and they put you in the bin like very often like on this spectrum too. But like for me in personal, it's just like the uniqueness factor of tournament of so many spots like made me go towards it. Obviously like the part of like winning your first tournament after 1.5 PB in the beginning of the career definitely had like maybe some survivor bias in him. And yeah, the other thing is always like, I feel just talking about human perspective, like tournaments have maybe a little bit kind of different kind of dopamine rush. Looking at like how society
the
now,
expectation, right?
The expectation, the rush of like going deep, like the emotional things after the tournament, like this is like still like a thing, like all our society nowadays with social media, if it's like advertised or whatever, it's all built around like kind of like triggering some dopamine and like some synapses in our brains. So like some people are more attached to stuff like that. Where you definitely like play again on the mental side a role. It's not just a pure priority or preference thing, I would say.
Yeah, and especially also you mentioned in the beginning, right? You wanted kind of the shortcut while grinding out cash. I mean, obviously you can still take very aggressive shots, right?
Yeah.
But like, oh, wow, I can wreck this tournament and, win it. And then,
And it was fun, yeah. Like, you're like reach the next step, like fuck over significantly faster. Yeah, obviously like depth plays a role too.
And what about the preference for live versus online?
I used to play a lot of online like back then, like but like mostly like bigger series and like again chasing like a bit more. Paying too many cables definitely was like one of the biggest mistakes I made moving up in stakes. But like again, like the highest stakes kind of maybe also a bit of like the attention and like all that stuff, and like that being seen as like the live 100K and stuff, it's like the highest thing that's possible out there. So that's like maybe what pushed me towards playing more and more live nowadays, like than compared to online. I'll be honest, like I always had like that feeling that I can't like really stand still in terms of like being in one certain place for too long. Like if after I come home from like a trip and I'm like, oh, I'm going to stay home for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, chill, spend some time with friends, and like after like 6 days, I'm like, oh, I can't do it. Like give me a flight out of here.
You did mention that during pandemic, right? You were kind of forced behind your computer and play more online. If you look back to that period, because I think like one of the benefits of online, oftenly stated, right, that the learning curve can be a little bit faster. You get more volume in, you have more tools around you. You can analyze straight away the hands that you played, etc. Do you feel like during that period your game took a big step forward? I think you also mentioned that after that, you were getting more into high roller stuff as well. But in the same time, also you mentioned that you had one of your biggest downswings. I think that was then probably also online.
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest the downswing came more from like after pandemic playing live. I think like improving wise, you improve way more when you're online. And I also feel like when I have like the long stretches where I play live, you have to be really careful to have like a decent routine when it comes to studying and stuff, because it's like playing a lot of live, especially when you're not playing like the higher stuff. Like let's say you play like a lot of like the EPTs, etc. Again, you're falling back to the category of like getting lazy, getting maybe a bit sloppy, because like small theory mistakes don't get really punished. Like just range betting spots like B30 and like spots where you like want to bet like bigger sizing or getting punished. People don't check raise enough, people don't float enough, whatever it is. Like not getting punished by being lazy and getting comfortable is like a big topic when you play a lot of live. So therefore you want to like have a good routine in place to prevent that. And like when I was playing like during pandemic, a lot, like obviously you just like your session finishes, you have hands that you have marked, you have what that you want to run. Like now when you go live, you have like usually have like 1 or 2 guys in the back where you send them to stop, they run it for you, gone with your day, you get your results, or you get the results the next day, look into it, or you run some stuff yourself. But it definitely like is less of the study routine when you play live compared to when you play online. Just because like the comfort of like, okay, I'm sitting here, my session is finished, I just like close my client and open up my hands, and I'm like straight into the study without like any stop in between. Tournament live, you play, you back, you maybe go eat like something, you like talk a couple hands to some guy. Now you're in your room and now you're supposed to like open up your laptop, go through your phone to find the hand that you have marked and like go through the study. Like it's like the convenience of like studying when you're playing online is like so much easier.
Do you recall any like big progressions in your game during this period where you were kind of forced behind your computer and during the pandemic?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, because like also when I'm at home and I'm like playing and studying online mostly, I'm like more in like I'd like this good circle of friends nowadays that are into tournaments. So you're more active in the group chats. You post like more hands in the group, like get opinions, like run to prove your friend wrong, or like learn something if he's right. Like your progression is way more natural because you're all of the time at home. You're all of the time at your computer. You couldn't go really out and like do something outside. So you like kind of push more towards like, okay, I'm going to sit on the couch and like scroll social media, or I'm actually going to do something productive. While then you're on a live stop, you're like, okay, I'm in a new location. I could go for like a nice dinner. I could like see like maybe some stuff that I won't be seeing when I'm back. So like your time goes like naturally like a bit more, I don't want to say wasted because it sounds a bit hard, but like unproductive. Maybe it's the right word.
Different. Yeah, there's
your priorities are different.
You know, you back, you walk through the hall, you come into a friend. The friend says, "Hey, we're about to head this way." Whereas if you just close your session online, no one's gonna walk into your room saying, "Hey, we're about to go this way." You know, so I get what you mean. You already mentioned that you hang out with a certain community, like everyone in poker, right? No, nowadays no one does it by themselves. You mentioned also in our questionnaire that you identify yourself more as a team player. How have you been able to turn something individual as poker into a team sport? And how do you think this has contributed to the success that you had in your career?
I think, like, honestly, it's both sides. One, it's like the mental side and the strategy side that improves when you have like a goes or inner circle, like handling swings, handling like bad results, like stuff like that. Even if you call yourself very resistant to like mental downswings, it's easier to talk to a friend. Like, this is in life. You're like, they're not made of lonely wolves, like most of us at least. So having friends to talk to, when you're especially when you're second guessing yourself, like, oh, this play, was it really good? Did I fuck up here? And like, either having someone be like, okay, unlucky, fucked up. Next time you do better. Or having someone who is like, no, you played it fine. It happens. Like, this stuff like helps from the human perspective. Like, it's trying to basically like having a close circle where like they can lift you up instead of like just like getting pushed down. It like has really effect on like how you see things, I would say. And then like on the strategy side, obviously, like having to run everything that you play, you're still like limited to a certain volume, right? Like each one of us, even if we play online, we cannot play like 5 million hands in a year. And we can definitely not run 5 million hands in a year. Like if everyone runs just this stuff and then just shares it, you all of a sudden got 5 times the amount of volume in terms of like interesting spot, interesting results and things you could learn. So that way, like your improving curve is just like significantly higher and your time investment is like significantly lower.
Yeah, because like through experience, obviously you learn, right? Through spots that you get in or through things that you learn about your opponents. And if you then share that with 5 people, if 5 people play in the same pool, you get a lot more information. And in the end, you know that information is power. I think throughout the conversation also at some point you mentioned coach, obviously backers. Any like coach or study partner or backer that has impacted your game in a big way? If so, like what do you think is like the most important thing that you learned?
I think I didn't have a coach for like, let me guess, like 6 years, 5 years, something like that. Like I think like the idea of the coach at the beginning, like actively coach with like 2-3 hours a week or more. Somebody who uses a cup is like a very good thing at the beginning to improve your learning curve quite a bit. And that was definitely like a good thing for me back then. So like I think I made so many mistakes at the beginning that someone like pointed it out to me and like showed me how to like proper use programs, proper like understand what's going on, how work for online, all this stuff. So that takes me like a lot of hours. Like I definitely recommend it, especially for younger coming up, people who are young and coming up. I think like at some point in your career, you're just like, obviously getting coaching is always, I think, a decent idea. But I think like at some point, like being able to identify small stuff as a coach and then like being able to like actually actively study by yourself is a very important thing. Like you cannot have somebody hold your hand all the way through and like walk you through every little step. It's a waste of time and resources. But for very specific stuff, like I would say it's good to get like a coach. Especially I would say more even online than live, because like you just need certain volume and hand requirements to actually can be able to make a statement. Just because the guy sees like you missed 1-3 bet out of the big blind, it doesn't mean you don't trigger the dab, or sometimes you have just too many tables. So I think like working with the coach is like a very important thing if you play a lot of online. If you're not already like well aware enough of how to identify leaks and how to fix them. But at some point in your career, I think, especially if you play live, like the main part is studying and analyzing. This is like what's improving you best.
Are you grinding hard, studying solvers, reviewing hands, but still not getting those results that you know you're capable of? You're putting in the time and effort, but without clear direction, that effort does not pay off. That is why I created the Mechanics Leak Buster program, which is the exact system I use to make over 7 figures playing online poker, and have since taught to hundreds of students so they could do the same. Through our Leak Finder stats and pop-ups, you will gain clarity on your biggest leaks and tendencies, insights on how your strategies have been performing in-game, and the impact variance has had on your results. But knowing your stats is only the beginning. In the program, we dig deep into the root causes behind your leaks and tendencies and use a proven 7-step system to fix them for good and gain the skills to improve and continuously evolve as a poker player. You'll study more effectively, overcome leaks and tendencies that felt impossible to break, and rebuild trust and confidence in your game, finally seeing your hard work pay off as you move up the stakes. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start improving with clarity, break through the patterns that have been holding you back, and take your game to the next level, join the Mechanics Leak Buster program using the link down below.
So talking about the studying, what for you has been the most effective ways that you have tried to improve as a poker player, and how has that process evolved over the years?
Okay, now for me, it was basically like most of the stuff intensive studying was for me at the beginning. I did it, I think, like reversed from like where the tournament begins. So it's like maybe at the beginning I put like a lot of time into like HRC, like understanding like how late game dynamics work, but the money is from Nate. And I like had servers, put like HRCs and run like spots where like my friends run some FPs, I run some FPs, like or some 2 tables. That was like working basically from the money stage backwards, and then like the GBV stuff for the early stage, or like maybe like 70% filled left or whatever it is. That one's like basically I treat it personally mostly like GBV. Like I know a lot of people say like, oh no, 70% or 60% of the filled left is like that risk premium. Yes, I agree with that, but modern poker theories, like especially followers, they're not putting like future game stuff like too excellent when there's like 800 people for it, I would say. So putting too much weight in like the 2.5% risk premium that you have and like 60% of the field is probably not like the right treat of your resources, and you can just like understand how to play the node in general well, just based on the opponent. So yeah, that looked like the first part was like obviously that, like most like understanding how the end game mechanics work, and I'm guarantee you I will still fuck up a lot of spots today. So don't think just like because I play them, like I play this tournament, I will just like be excellent in every spot. I will just like make mistakes and I will learn from them, and this is human nature. But I will try to improve whenever I make a mistake. And then afterwards, like when Wizard actually came up with the node log function and all this stuff, I did a couple months. I would just like dig into node, the fish, like river node, because I felt like I saw myself like going through spots I would catch and then not be good very often, and it'll be like, but theory says it's fine. It'll be like, okay, why don't I just like lift that curtain and look maybe behind how the mechanic of the spot works? Like the podcast said, the mechanics of poker is not just like a certain picture that is like locked and is not going to change. Every input you give gives you another output. So I will try to like find out which mechanics I'm like misunderstanding or misinterpreting, and based on that, get better in the stage where that leads to me being able to like show my knowledge more on game stage.
What did you find when you lifted the curtain? So to use your words.
Oh, on the fucking calling station. Literally, like I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I feel like I have work to do. I was like, I will just like be too much into okay, like this looks good as a catcher, and this looks good. I would be like too in love with like looking up my opponent and not being self-aware enough. That they are able to adjust, that they are not stupid and just like play a robot output. When they are like they had done the work before me. They had like done the work, and they had like studied like the stuff that I was like back then. I was starting to study, so like therefore I was like they were adjusting while I was like playing static.
How did you go about playing less static and becoming less of a station? Obviously, it's easy to identify that you're a station, but then to fix the fact that you're a station, that's sometimes quite hard.
I'm probably still am like compare if you ask plenty of people, like they will say I got kind of a fault. But I try to identify the spots better, like based on like what you study, based on experience, based on volume you played, you improve. Like your autopilot get better, but when your autopilot gets better, then your A game automatically improves so much, like a lot. Like you learn some stuff. Your intuition like gets better. Like you realize what that are like underbluff. You realize what about overbluff. And this is coming from volume, like as much as it comes from studying. Like you cannot like there's people out there, for example, who are great coaches, but they will choke as soon as they play the spot because they're very good in like explaining the spot, but they miss the intuition. And then there's people who are out there who will play intuitively most of the spot really well. And then like once it comes to a theoretical question, they like either lack an explanation or lack in executing like a pure theory. This is the beauty of the game. Like it's so many individual characters who approach stuff differently. So you cannot like generalize this stuff. You have to like be on both sides of the spectrum, the theory and practice, to like make a complete player, like an all-rounder.
What do you think is like something that's often overlooked or underestimated, which is a great way to increase your EV in poker?
I would say like the biggest thing that underestimated is like the adjusting perspective. Like now, especially nowadays, I feel like the more tools are coming out and like the more GTO is like, they're like, oh, this is theory confirmed. The more people just be like, okay, I just try to memorize and computer output. People stop thinking and start memorizing, and this is like something that costs you in the long run. Like not being able, or like this way, like on the time when I had like a big downswing, I would just like try to play as close as possible to theory, because it's also like from the confidence perspective, I would say it's a protection mechanism. You lose a spot that you played theory confirm, you can say like, almost said it's fine, I didn't make a mistake. So you kind of protect yourself by being judged. And I think like the greatest minds in poker that I have seen, they don't care who is judging. They don't care who thinks that line was stupid. They don't think like, oh, this is not theory, this looks bad. Like there's so many I could like point out, like one of them, like I think it's a good example, like Mikita. Like he plays spots like on streams, like I saw him play spots with like, if they like go pure theory, you will never like do this. And like this in game, it was, first of all, it was correct, but this is just results by it. But he's just so good in adjusting. Adrian, like you name like the top people, like you will see it from time to time. Kuhn, like I could like, the list could go on like for half an hour, like for people I respect a lot. And I think are so much better than me in terms of like adjusting to a certain circumstance, because they don't care about what other people think. They don't think what Solver thinks about like how this is like clearly a call or clearly a fold, because they're present in the situation and are willing to make the right adjustment based on the situation they define them. And these are the people who are like have been here for 10 years. And as long as they're willing to, as long as they want to play poker, they will be here around in 10 years and 20 years ago.
And these are the kind of the people that you started facing when you started to play Tritons. You kind of mentioned that at some point, that by going into Tritons, obviously this upped the necessity, right? This very out of your comfort zone, and that gets you moving forward. When you first joined these Tritons and you kind of saw kind of the gap between those guys and where you are, how did you go about closing the gap?
I mean, like basically like a push in the cold water that I forced myself into. It's like, it took me obviously some time because like they would do things different. I would be like, why they adjust this way or that way? And I would be like, they are supposed to play theory. And then I see them adjusting. I'm like, I didn't get it. It took me some time to realize that like adjusting is actually like the correct way of theory. So then I would like start digging deeper in note, like try to understand. I would like kind of sometimes like screenshot the note they played compared to like what the theory said, and then be like, okay, where do I need to make an adjustment based on my opponent's range or his opponent's range in that spot to land on his result? So that way, like I would reverse engineer their thought process, kind of.
That's interesting. What did you find?
I mean, a lot of stuff that basically like nowadays sounds pretty easy or like logic. It's like, oh, okay, he's missing like a couple bluffs here. Oh, like when you go like B150 on the turn, he's supposed to call like this bottom pair and like this middle pair and like fold this top pair. And then like all of a sudden you're like, this is not happening. This is a human. This is sometimes like either like a good pro, but like he might like overfold this spot like minimal because the EV loss is so tiny, or like it's the recreational and he's just like not willing to like fade the river note versus like a very good player. So I would like realize what they think about like what you would also realize like how they think about certain opponents, because you see she played that spot versus this guy specifically in this note, and then you're like, okay, so it like also gives me like some idea how he thinks about certain opponents, maybe like spot where like a river showdown comes and like a mandatory bluff skip mandatory, and I'm like, okay, this gives me a general idea how he thinks about this opponent or how he thinks about me when it goes to a showdown. Like he gives the hand up because it's a showdown, because okay, but he thinks about how I play when he's not bluffing the hand. Like it gives you like general idea of how people think about certain aspects of the game, but also like certain people in their competition circle.
Where's like the balance between giving a lot of meaning to showdown, like kind of what you're explaining now, and just rubbing it off as something random? Like where is that balance? Because like you also said, like could be that today he was not feeling in the mood to, there could be a million reasons, why someone does something.
I agree, and I don't think like we should like give too much weight into a single showdown. This is when playing a small kind of circle of players, small circuit of like player pool of 100 to 200 people comes into consideration, because you will not just play one showdown versus, and you will not play just one hand versus a certain opponent. You get tempo over the side, and this is why it takes like, this is like dosing the gap is not happening from today to tomorrow. This is like dosing the gaps and finding different approaches and like improving, and discomfort, all this stuff comes into play over like a certain stretch of time. I cannot do one showdown and be like, okay, the guy skipped because like he thinks I'm a station, or because he had a live read, or because he didn't feel it today. Yet, but over volume, as everything in poker, over volume, you get results.
All right, so we've spent the last hour and a half or so covering your journey and your ups and downs at the start into your more success now. What would you say has been the most valuable lesson your poker journey has taught you so far?
I would say, honestly, and this is what I'm referring to very often, like poker, the skills to learn in poker reflect real life a lot. Like the different topics you go through, like how variance work, how like you work with the hands you're dealt, like you adjust to your environment. These are things that are very important for the game, but they also teach you so much things about life, like how to read like the room, how to adjust the situation, how to not get too emotional about things that are out of your hand. They teach you a certain point for life, and this is like what I'm grateful for. Like, the poker has given me a lot in terms of like freedom, in terms of financials, but also given me a lot about like reflection, about learning how to deal with life, with bad luck and good luck. And I think this is most important for me today. It has given me a great career. It has given me a great 10 years. But also I think like it gives me like a really exciting journey ahead of me. for the next 10 years in terms of poker, in terms of life.
What's been the hardest lesson for you to learn?
The life is not always like fair, but your perspective shows you a lot that like the things that you might think are real struggles and problems is something someone else sometimes wish to have. Like the life we have, like some people like complaining like about, oh, like this is unfair, or I got a bad beat. Bro, at the end of the day, we're traveling the world, playing card games for a living, seeing countries and places that some people wish to go, and having the freedom to decide what we want to do. Like having a bad beat on the final table bubble should be a least problem. It took me some while to realize that.
Yeah, it's almost like the mind's always like looking for problems and the next challenge, the next thing that's coming up. And sometimes we miss how good life is, or how good relatively our current situation is compared to how it used to be. And we can kind of forget all the successes and just chase the next goal and kind of, forget where we've got to. So for you, what are some of the most important perspectives to remind yourself of? So you mentioned like kind of gratitude there for where you are. What are some other perspectives that you feel are important for you to be mindful of or keep front of mind?
I feel like the perspective, I would say basically the glass is half full always. It's like the glass is not half empty, the glass is half full, and your journey on the way, you will fill up the rest. Say it that way. Well, like really the perfect answer for your question, but like the perspective I've seen through my journey through poker is that like the glass that you fill out the rest on your way, and you just enjoy the journey. And life has given us so many great opportunities to poker. For me, especially, I feel like I've got so many good perspectives about life, and just like will enjoy the journey going forward and fill up the glass on the way.
I love that. But listen to you speak, I've kind of been thinking you live very much in your story of you're this guy who wants to be a high stakes player, living that experience and trying to compete against the best players. How important is it to feel involved in the story of your life you're living? I know it's kind of a weird way to word that, but I'm trying to get to the point of a lot of people are kind of passengers to life. They're trying to achieve stuff. They're trying to achieve a certain goal, get somewhere, but they're not fully engaged like the story narrative. Like you're the hero. You're the guy who's trying to slay the dragon, become the high stakes version of yourself. How important for you has it been to kind of be involved in the story of your life?
It's funny because you all basically took the answer away that I was about to give. It's so important that you're not on the passenger seat, that you live the moment. Like you're not like being a passenger and watching it from the outside. Like enjoy the way the journey that's going through is so much more important. People be just like sitting there in autopilot and be like, okay, like I play this tournament, I go to this, like instead of like realizing in what environment they are right now. Like the passenger seat metaphor is really fitting, I think, for a lot of people, especially when the life gets stressful. They're like trying to survive it instead of like being present and realizing, okay, there's some things that is out of my hand and there's some things that are in my hand. And if I'm like not just a passenger, I will take control over the things that I can change to improve my life and going forward, have a better situation mentally and in my career.
You mentioned being present. What does being present mean for you?
Awareness, emotional stability. I would say also like, and this is maybe not just in your hand, but like surrounding yourself with the right people, like toxic environment for real. Victim mentality is something that is very real. Being grateful and aware of the environment you're in is usually like a good start.
How do you gain that awareness of your environment? Well, what's the kind of the challenges to do that?
This is one of the biggest challenges in my opinion, because like people, and now back to the comfort topic, like it's comfortable to stay in an environment that you're in. And I think about the European podcast that you made where he decided actively to like switch his environment and like smaller his circle, because realizing that when people are just like pointing out other people's mistakes over just like having self-awareness and self-reflection, that's usually something that you then start like taking over in your life and be like, okay, when things are not going well, oh yeah, that guy played that hand bad, but he got like successful, why not me? Over like being like, okay, I played this one poor, where could I like actively improve things? Or this guy's just like toxic and like, or this group is just like pointing out other mistakes, other people's mistakes. Why do I like put myself into this circle while I could either like be happy with myself, just do it my own way, or find like the right people I want to surround myself with, the right mindset. people are looking on like improving themselves over just like looking for other people's missteps.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think we all underestimate the power of environments. I think it's really hard to be successful if your environment's not aligned with your goals. I think it's in James Clear book, Atomic Habits. He says something like, it's impossible, the word impossible, to maintain good habits in a bad environment. So it's like, all right, like he's the habit guy who tells you how to keep your habits going. So it shows like environments are very, if it's aligned with your goals, it's kind of like a win-win scenario where it's kind of pulling you forward. If your environment's not aligned, this could be people, places, distractions, things that pull you away from your goals. You're always fighting just to get going, just to get your day started. So for you, when it comes to environment, what things matter for you? What are the kind of things that you try to align in your environment to make sure your environment's suited to your goals?
Atomic Habits. It's been a while since I read that one. I remember some good sentences from that book. I think like realizing the environment that you're in is like a very tough goal to do. I think like actually like reading books like Atomic Habits or other like self-improving books, like they help a lot to like realize when you are like in the wrong environment. You realize when people's goals and ambitions are not the same as yours, and having the courage to step out and be like, okay, this is not for me. This is not bringing me any further. This is either dragging me down energy-wise or like from my goals away. And having the courage to step up for yourself and be like, I'm going to do what is best for me here, even if it's maybe not this comfortable, maybe having some rubbing points with other people, but standing up for yourself and to make the right decision is like something you have to learn. And this is something we grow every day in.
Yeah, I think the key thing you mentioned there is energy, like what kind of gives you energy. I think it comes down to like people and places. Your environment's kind of a combination of those, and what gives you energy that allows you to pursue your goals, and what takes energy away from you. And some of it's small things, some of it's big things. But yeah, I feel like if you spend time like controlling your environment, I say controlling in terms of designing your environment, in terms of the place that makes you feel inspired to work, and you're around people who inspire you, challenge you, push you. The game's like rigged in your favor. It's almost hard to lose in a very positive environment with positive people. It's like you have to try hard to lose in that environment long term. So yeah, I do feel like it takes time design, and often, as you mentioned, you've got to seek some discomfort in the short term to pull away from environments that aren't suited to you. And it's a long game as well. I also feel like anyone who's struggling with this, you can't just like click your fingers and change your environments. It takes like time, maybe years, to attract the right people and create the right circle around you that's conducive to your goals. But yeah, I do think it's something that comes up very often in terms of players who are successful always find ways to create an environment around them that's conducive with high performance, from being their best self. So yeah, I feel that's been true for you as well. What would you say has been the biggest contributor to your success as a poker player?
I mean, like I would say like my environment, but like not, it doesn't have to be like necessarily just like the environment of my friends or my family. They obviously play a big role. Like the people you surround yourself, like give you the energy of like going through rough stretches, they lift you up. Like that's obviously a shout out to like a great family and friends that I have. But also the environment in terms of your competition, like they keep you up to like keep higher standards for yourself. Like when you like consistently like playing versus this guy and like are surrounded by them, like you're going like the high roller circuit is not just like, oh, I sit with them at the table and I don't see them. Sometimes you grab a drink, you sometimes have a dinner, you sometimes like heard perspectives of life, then like you see how they treat like when they have a downswing, how they have an upswing. But your environment in terms of your competition also keeps you kind of accountable for yourself. And you're like, if they have done it, I can also be better. I have to be better to like stay in this environment. So it's a mix of the close circle you have, but also the people you're competing on a daily and weekly basis.
In the high stakes circle, how much is it kind of little cliques of small groups who are kind of sheltered off from everyone? And how much is it people trying to interact with each other, help each other? For you personally, have you got like your own little circle you speak with? And how kind of, I'm just wondering on a kind of social level and a competitive level, how much you guys kind of keep yourself separate, or how much you guys interact?
I would say on a like study level, it's definitely like the little groups of like either some nationalities or like financial groups or whatever. There's definitely like less disclosed, but like still like some people are openly talking about a bit more openly talking, but it's still at the end of the day, it's your strategy. Like so you're giving someone something, a piece that can be used against you. But it's not as strict as like, oh, I don't talk to this guy any word about a hand. It's a bit more chilled like at some point, because people also know that your competition is studying too. It's not like you don't talk any hand. It's just like more when you go into detail that you like disclose some stuff or not. In terms of social stuff, like it's actually a very social environment. Like usually like in Jeju, they have like a soccer court, like often like people like for the main card to go play out soccer or like spike ball. Some guys play tennis or paddle together. So it's like, it's not like we're like, oh, completely shut up of each other and just like leave our rooms and like go back to our circle. So it's like a very friendly and social environment, I would say.
What moment of your poker career are you most proud of so far? What moment's been the most meaningful to you?
Oh, like, I would say the Triton trophy. I don't know why. I mean, like I know why, but like it feels like it's like right now the toughest competition and like the most meaningful title in high stakes poker that you can have. But it also like came for me. I mean, it came now like again like a bunch of decent scores, but it came like for me at the final thing that I wanted to have. I had the bracelet in December. I had like the other high roller title. I really feel I wanted this Triton trophy. I really like felt like it's one tick on the box that I really wanted to have, and got like I had some good friends on the rail, and it was like after I had like kind of lost a lot of weight and like a bunch of like private stuff around, so like that felt really meaningful.
How do you pick yourself up again after a big win? Let's say the Triton one, that's kind of the final tick box for you, crowning kind of moments. Then after that kind of settles down, it's like, right, back to the grind again. How do you make that transition from a big goal complete back to the next day-to-day grind?
Oh, that was the first one. There's friends of 6 and 10 and more of them. But like, there's definitely some competition that's again like that's the cycle of the people you compete with. There's friends of mine who have 6 of the titles, and I'm definitely planning to catch up to them.
All right, so you're that guy. You're like never like complete. You want more and more. No. It's like I always feel like some people want to climb the mountain to get the top and go, yes, got the top. I've done it. Others get there and like, right, that's just the start. I want to get that next one, and you're comparing yourself to guys who've got multiple titles and you want to compete with them. So for you, how do you? You mentioned like the challenge of catching up. Like it is difficult to catch up with the best guys because they're so good, so much experience. How do you see yourself catching up with the top players in the world over the next 5-10 years?
I plan on playing. I plan on studying, and planning to. With Pat's words, like you cannot decide. You cannot say when you get lucky. You can just like put yourself in a situation to get lucky. So right now, I will just like show up. I will keep playing. I will keep studying, and I will try to put myself in the situation as often as possible to get that part of variance and catch up that heat to win the titles, win the trophies, have the results, and I will enjoy the journey.
If you could look back at your younger self, we've talked a lot about this, more reckless, overconfident version. We could fast track his journey just a little bit. And we know a lot of stuff you got to be learning from experience. But yourself right now, with the wisdom you've got, what advice would you give to yourself back in 2017 that might make that version of yourself have a few less challenges?
Honestly, the only thing I would say be less self-confident. I would not even advise my personal version of myself to like do like the financial stuff different, because like I feel the struggle, the things we go through, and the challenges we face on our journey is what built up the version of ourselves that's here sitting here today with you guys. And the way I went through this stuff, it was exhausting sometimes, but I feel like I handled it well enough, and like it didn't like broke me in terms of like any mental stuff or like being like, oh, I want to quit. So I think like from my character personally, I would be fine surviving that shit again. I would definitely advise my younger self to be less confident, give credit and respect where it's needed, look behind the curtain maybe more often instead of just like trying to force yourself into something the computer puts off.
Yeah, I love that, because it's kind of acknowledging that we grow from discomfort, we grow from challenges. It's very easy to think we could just skip that phase to end of the end destination, but that's almost never the case. And this story, your story that we've talked about today, has been a lot of the challenges you faced, a lot of the trials and tribulations made the stories. I always feel like it's really good when you're going for a real challenge in life, just to envision like being at the end point of your kind of success journey and then retelling the story of the moment you're in now. And that's where it's got all the juice. That's where it's like, this was a challenge, almost quit, so much self-doubt. I felt like what am I doing with my life? And then you visualize getting the end of that and then retelling that story like you are today. You're like, that'll be so cool. And then you realize, all right, the challenges are the thing. If we removed all the challenges, all the obstacles, went, hey, I started poker, crushed everyone, I'm the best player in the world. Everyone's like, right, well done. Next, get the next guy on. This guy's boring. We want to hear it was hard for you story. So yeah, I really love that you didn't want to change that element. It was more just maybe the ego, the overconfidence side that you would have learned a little bit quicker. So for you, the audience listening to this conversation, what would you like the main takeaway to be from this conversation?
Main takeaway from this conversation is like, if you are planning to do poker just because of the money, don't do it. You can have a career in so many ways. The financial part is the only thing that is important to you. The hours will be like probably very similar. Like if you enjoy playing, if you enjoy the time on and off the tables, then poker gives you like a very cool career that also won't feel like working most of the time, and you will enjoy like putting in the hours. And this is why I am in poker right now, and I would love to be in poker the next 10 years. Is because I enjoy the time and element of the tables. I don't feel like I'm working like a 9 to 5 or like even like another job. Do it if you have the passion for the game, do it for the love of the game, and the financial part will catch up at some point. But enjoy the ride.
Great advice. Thank you so much for sharing the last few hours with us.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure to be with you.
What a great conversation that was. Thank you very much, Daniel. Adam, what were your main takeaways of the conversation we had today?
Yeah, great conversation. Some very clear themes that were running through for me. First was competition and how much competition plays a role in his life of wanting to be the best, wanting to play the best people, but also it brings out that ability to step into discomfort. He mentioned the Triton for him is his way of playing the best players, but also doing something uncomfortable and figuring out how to improve, how to get better. And he talked about how, comfort is kind of the enemy that we need to push past and try to seek environments that make us grow. It's often doing uncomfortable things. And for him, competition isn't necessarily about the win itself, as he's kind of reflected throughout his journey. It's more about the process of becoming better and the journey itself of showing up, doing the work. That's where he gets his competitive drive from. And then the Triton stops and the high roller scene is his way of put that to the test and being in an environment which brings out that kind of competitive kind of drive for him. Another one that was really apparent throughout the conversation was perspective and how great his perspective skills were of seeing adversity as like something to learn from. All the downswings he had, 3 years of almost going broke, he always saw just like something to learn, just a stop in the road. I'm always going to make it to the top. He never let it stop his confidence. He never damaged his belief in himself. If anything, his biggest challenge was overconfidence. He thought he was too good relative to the level he was playing, and he had to get beat down by the higher guys. But even then, he saw that as like, I've learned now. I've seen what I didn't know. I realized I sucked at poker compared to what I thought. And I really feel like for him, like he's got that superpower of anything that life throws at him, he will never label it as a bad thing. It will always be something he can learn from, or just like a blip in the road and not a big deal. So yeah, I really feel that's a superpower in terms of how you can think of challenging your life as just an obstacle that you're overcoming, but also not a negative perspective. I think you mentioned a couple of times, never taking the victim mindset. I think it was very clear that he doesn't like to do that. He likes to be very much in control. And then the final thing was around that kind of discomfort feeling that he has himself, where I think he said discomfort leads to improvement, discomfort leads to growth. And for him, just trying to put himself in those environments where he's improving day by day. So I've got loads of other notes, but I think the main topics for me were around competition, perspective, and discomfort. I thought the skills he's got in those areas were really good. And I look forward to listening back to rewrite my notes on those ones. How about yourself, Rene? What was the main ones for you?
Yeah, definitely the perspective one was interesting. He said early in the conversation, he said broke versus liquidity broke, which then also reminded me of a conversation that we had with Venividi where he said, I'm broke. I just need some outside capital for my business, right? Because also when we asked Daniel in the questionnaire, said, rock bottom moments or something, he said, no. But what do you mean? He went broke multiple times. He talked about this huge downswing, but it was all part of the dream, right? He said he wanted to live the dream as a poker player, and he said, I'm living the dream. Like all these struggles, all this shit, it's all part of the dream. Look at this. I'm traveling over the world. Sure, I busted off another roll, but, I'm not really broke. I'm just, liquidity broke at the moment. So, there's no story around it, and he's just happy with the moment, despite things not really going away. But this is it. This is the dream. He's currently living it. So yeah, I thought that was a Yeah, I thought that was amazing stuff. You already mentioned like the discomfort keeps you moving. He said pressure makes diamonds. I wrote that one as well. And then they also said in terms of the discomfort, he said preparation then solves the discomfort, right? He mentioned that if you would go to Triton and someone puts him in the blender, it puts him in a difficult spot, then next time he would prepare better for that spot, because discomfort also kind of points you in the direction of where you can improve, right? So that's how he then tried to solve that. It's not like, okay, yeah, I feel very discomfort because I don't know what to do. I have to get better at just feeling this discomfort. No, he's also trying to solve it, right? It's trying to be proactive about it. And this kind of comes back to what he also said at the end, like learning to understand what you have control over, what you don't have control over. Certain discomforts, yeah, you just gotta have to embrace. But certain other discomforts, like, oh, I don't really know what to do in this node, obviously you should try to actively try to improve on. We talked a lot about like the theoretical side of the game as well. The classic, you know, you should think actively instead of memorization was meant as well. He talked about that GTO, he had like a little phase where he was kind of using GTO as like a protection mechanism, trying to play perfect. But then he said, listen, if you look at the other guys, they're not trying to play perfectly. This was actually kind of a surprise to him. He sat down at Triton and he was like, wait, these guys are supposed to play theory, but they're not playing theory at all. They're going out there, they're adjusting, you know, and they're willing to look bad, to make big adjustments, right? They have the balls to go out of the theory. And then an important thing that he said, you basically learn theory. That's kind of that's kind of an eye-opening moment for him, that you learn theory to adjust. And that was when he started to go through a phase, I think he said like 3 months, where he was very deep into node locking, and he started to understand, oh wait, I'm only learning this theory so I know how to adjust and when to adjust from it, not necessarily to play the theory from the sake of just playing the theory. And then he also talked about, for example, if you saw, I think he mentioned Mikita or Kayan or Adrian, he said, I would then flip it, like if I would see them doing something that's not theory approved, so they're making adjustment, I would then go to the solver and let my opponent respond in a way that made his play good. So then I can understand how he views the situation. And then basically I can learn the thought process from like the top players, right? And also if they do something, they play certain hands against me, it can teach me something about how they view me or how they view the situation, right? So that I thought was pretty interesting. Okay, so next time maybe when you play against a guy, you, instead of just saying this guy out of his mind or something, try to learn how he thinks by putting this in the solver, node locking, when is his play correct, under which assumption, so that you this way learn from that how that opponent thinks, right? Yeah, great stuff in general. I want to thank Daniel again for coming on. I want to thank Adam for co-hosting this podcast with me. I want to thank you guys for tuning in again. Leave a like and leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one that we have coming out. Shout out to our sponsor, Hand to Note, and I will see you guys in the next one.